The night was cold. Most people in the Lagos ghetto were still asleep when Chidera Adeyemi suddenly woke up with a scream. A bucket of cold water had been poured on her. She quickly sat up from the thin mattress on the floor. Standing before her was her stepmother, Madame Bose. A wicked smile rested on the woman's face. "Wake up, lazy girl," she shouted. Chidera looked at the old wall clock. It was barely 4 a.m. Her body still ached from the previous day's work. She had washed clothes, cleaned the compound, cooked dinner, and fetched water late into the night. Yet none of that mattered. Madame Bose never seemed satisfied. Without saying another word, Chidera grabbed the yellow jerry cans and stepped outside. The streets were dark and silent. As she walked toward the community tap, tears quietly rolled down her cheeks. This had become her daily life. Chidera was 22 years old. She was one of the most beautiful young women in the neighborhood. Her light skin glowed naturally. Her long black hair framed a face so beautiful that many people often wondered how someone like her could be living in such poverty. But beauty did not change her reality. She lived in a small, overcrowded compound in one of Lagos's poorest neighborhoods. Her biological mother had died when she was still a little girl. For years, it was only her and her father. Then everything changed when her father remarried. At first, Madame Bose pretended to be kind, but immediately after the wedding, her true character emerged. She treated Chidera like a servant. The young woman cooked, cleaned, washed clothes, fetched water, and performed nearly every household chore. Meanwhile, Madame Bose's daughters enjoyed their lives. Among the two girls, only Favor showed Chidera kindness. Favor often shared her food with her and comforted her whenever things became difficult. The older sister, Vivian, was completely different. She enjoyed mocking Chidera. Whenever Madame Bose insulted her, Vivian laughed. Whenever Chidera was punished, Vivian celebrated. It was as though she had inherited all of her mother's cruelty. The saddest part of all was Chidera's father. Mr. Kunle Adeyemi worked in Lekki and spent most of his time away from home. Because of his job, he rarely witnessed what happened inside the house. Whenever he returned, Madame Bose filled his ears with lies. She accused Chidera of being stubborn. She accused her of being disrespectful. She accused her of refusing to work. And every time, Kunle believed her. The lies slowly built a wall between father and daughter. No matter how hard Chidera tried to explain herself, her father never seemed to listen. One afternoon, everything began to change. Madame Bose handed Chidera a flask of food. "Take this to your father in Lekki," she ordered. Chidera immediately obeyed. Despite everything, she loved her father deeply. The journey from the ghetto to Lekki took several hours. When she finally arrived at the company where her father worked, she smiled with excitement. She had missed him. But the smile disappeared almost immediately. Her father was furious. Before she could even greet him, he began shouting. According to a rumor someone had spread, Chidera had been seen talking to strange men on the road instead of delivering the food. The accusation was completely false, but her father didn't care. Employees gathered around as he scolded her publicly. Tears filled Chidera's eyes. She felt humiliated. Just when things seemed hopeless, a young man stepped forward. His name was Daniel Williams, the son of the company's billionaire owner. Tall, handsome, and confident, Daniel was respected by everyone in the company. He looked at Chidera. Then he looked at her father. Something about the situation bothered him. For the first time, someone questioned the accusations against Chidera. For the first time, someone defended her. And for the first time in many years, Chidera felt seen. Neither of them knew it yet, but that moment would change the course of her life forever. Because Daniel was about to discover the truth behind the beautiful girl from the Lagos ghetto. And once the billionaire family learned what she had been enduring, nothing would ever be the same again. The journey back from Lekki felt longer than usual. Chidera sat quietly inside the crowded bus, staring through the window while tears rolled down her cheeks. Her father's angry voice echoed inside her head. "You shameless girl, where have you been? Why did it take you so long to bring my food?" No matter how much she tried to explain that traffic had delayed her, he refused to listen. Instead, he embarrassed her in front of everyone, even in front of Daniel Williams, the son of the company's billionaire owner. By the time Chidera arrived home, darkness had already covered the ghetto. The compound was busy as usual. Children were running around. Women sat outside gossiping. Men discussed football and politics. The moment Chidera entered the compound, Madame Bose appeared. "Where have you been?" she shouted. "There was traffic, Mama." Madame Bose laughed. "Traffic? Or were you following men around?" Vivian immediately joined in. "Mummy, leave her alone. Maybe she finally found herself a rich boyfriend." The two burst into laughter. Only Favor remained silent. She looked at Chidera with pity. Before Chidera could enter her room, Madame Bose pointed towards several empty buckets. "Go and fetch water." "Mama, it's already dark." "So? I'm tired." Madame Bose stepped closer. "Did you just argue with me?" Immediately, Chidera lowered her head. "No, Mama." Within minutes, she was walking toward the community borehole. As she carried the heavy buckets, tears filled her eyes. Sometimes she wondered if life would ever change, but despite everything, she never stopped hoping. The next morning, Chidera was sleeping peacefully when cold water suddenly splashed across her body. She jumped up in shock. Madame Bose stood above her. Still sleeping? Chidera stared at her soaked mattress. This wasn't the first time. Whenever Madame Bose felt angry, she poured water on her while she slept. Some nights Chidera slept on the floor. Some nights she slept hungry. Yet she never complained, because nobody listened. Her father was always away working in Lekki. And whenever he returned home, Madame Bose filled his ears with lies. As far as he knew, Chidera was lazy, disrespectful, stubborn, and he believed every word. Meanwhile, Daniel Williams couldn't stop thinking about her. There was something different about Chidera, something genuine, something rare. A few days later, he decided to follow her home. What he discovered shocked him. He watched her carry water. He watched her wash clothes. He watched her sweep the compound. Then he watched Madame Bose slap her in front of everyone. Daniel couldn't believe it. Chidera didn't fight back. She didn't insult anyone. She simply lowered her head and continued working. That night, Daniel told his parents everything. Chief Richard Williams listened carefully. His wife Elizabeth became emotional. "No young woman deserves that kind of treatment," she said. Daniel nodded. "That's exactly what I thought." Chief Richard folded his arms. "I want to meet her." A few days later, a luxury SUV entered the ghetto. The entire neighborhood froze. Children ran after the vehicle. Women abandoned their conversations. Nobody could believe their eyes. The SUV stopped in front of Chidera's compound. When Daniel stepped out, Madame Bose nearly lost her balance. She quickly adjusted her wrapper. "Good afternoon, sir." Daniel ignored her. "Is Chidera home?" A few moments later, Chidera appeared. Her faded gown was clean but old. Her slippers were worn out, yet somehow she still looked beautiful. Daniel smiled. "My parents would like to meet you." Chidera's eyes widened. "Me? Yes." When they arrived at the Williams mansion in Lekki, Chidera nearly stopped breathing. The gates alone were bigger than her entire compound. The gardens looked like something from a movie. Luxury cars filled the driveway. Everything was perfect. For a moment, she felt completely out of place, but Elizabeth immediately welcomed her warmly. "My dear, you're welcome." The kindness in her voice almost made Chidera cry. Nobody had spoken to her that way in years. As they sat together, Elizabeth asked simple questions. "What are your dreams?" The question surprised Chidera. Nobody had ever asked before. After a long pause, she answered, "I want to go back to school." Elizabeth smiled. "What else?" "I want my father to be proud of me." Chief Richard listened carefully. "And after that?" Tears formed in Chidera's eyes. "I want to help people who are suffering." The room became quiet. Chief Richard exchanged glances with Elizabeth. Most people would have talked about money, or luxury, or fame. But Chidera's first dream was helping others. That told them everything. Over the following weeks, Chidera visited the Williams family several times. The more they got to know her, the more they admired her. Elizabeth especially became attached. The young woman reminded her of the daughter she had lost many years earlier. Meanwhile, Chief Richard quietly investigated Chidera's background. What he discovered made him angry. Years of abuse, years of suffering, years of lies. Even worse, her father had unknowingly allowed it to continue. When the investigation was complete, Chief Richard called a family meeting. Daniel sat beside him. Elizabeth waited quietly. Then Chief Richard spoke. "I've made my decision." Everyone looked at him. "This girl deserves a chance." Elizabeth smiled. Daniel smiled too.